Hi, I'm Esther Jones and I'm a HypnoBirthing practitioner. I've been working with couples since 2007 and I gave birth to two of my children preparing with hypnobirthing. And today I want to talk about how we've been deeply conditioned to expect labour to be a certain way and why this deep conditioning really makes birth so much harder for us. And we're also going to look at how we can start to decondition and to really begin to create a new way of thinking about childbirth and labour. So we're not necessarily conscious of this, but the vast majority of us, by the time we come to preparing for our first baby's birth, we've had at least a couple of decades, maybe 3 decades, maybe 4 decades of this subtle and not so subtle messaging, negative messaging around childbirth. So the not so subtle tends to be those awful births that we've all seen in television shows and in films. So invariably the waters break in a big puddle, the woman is immediately in excruciating pain, there's lots of screaming, perhaps there's an ambulance, there's probably a hapless dad who hasn't a clue what to do, and almost certainly at the end there are lots of doctors shouting push at a really exhausted woman. So you may well also have heard stories about pain and emergency situations. Perhaps you've heard them from your mother, even from a sister, from friends. So the question after all of this isn't why are we scared of childbirth, but the question really is why wouldn't we be scared of childbirth? So what's the problem with all of this? Well, the problem with this negative conditioning is that when it comes time to give birth, our minds and our bodies are really geared up to respond to labour as though it were something negative or maybe something dangerous happening to us. And this is known as the conditioned pain reflex. So instead of interpreting these powerful sensations in our body as part of what it is, which is a natural, normal physiological process, we respond to them as though we were under attack. And the effect of this on labour is quite devastating. So our bodies essentially go into survival or fight or flight mode. We stop producing the hormone oxytocin, which is what keeps the contractions going, it keeps us feeling good, and instead our bodies flood with adrenaline. So the blood goes to all our big muscles and our breathing gets shallow. And those powerful uterine muscles, which so need oxygen and blood, are absolutely starved of oxygen and blood. They tense up, they don't work properly, and yes, it all feels extremely painful. And we are essentially engaged in a battle with our own labour. So we want our babies to come, but our minds are shouting, no, this is the worst thing ever. Everyone's told me this will be phenomenally painful. And our bodies are responding to this. Our bodies are actually not trying to make things difficult for us. They're working perfectly. So responding with adrenaline and the fight or flight response to a dangerous situation is exactly how our bodies are supposed to work to keep us safe. So the only way to really enable our bodies to respond differently is to have different thoughts. So in order to relax into these deep sensations, which are very powerful, and not tense into them and tense up at them, we have to trust them. And after being told for years and years and years that this process is to be feared, that it is dangerous, that it will hurt terribly, well, learning to really trust and let go is really quite a piece of work. But it is absolutely possible to decondition the mind and to prepare for labour in a really different way. So I did exactly that for my second birth. And I've worked with hundreds of women who have successfully managed to replace the fear, the anxiety with confidence and trust in their bodies and in the labour process. And the result is really a transformation of those sensations. So there are a few ways that you can start to decondition your mind right now, whatever stage you're at in your pregnancy, whether you're 16 weeks or 37 weeks, it's never too late. So firstly, your outer environment. What are the messages surrounding you? And are they making you feel confident and trusting, or are they making you feel fearful, anxious? So think about the people around you and how they're talking to you. Think about the websites you're looking at, the stories you're hearing, the information you're searching out, and start to filter out anything that makes you feel anxious. So don't read, watch or listen to things that portray birth in a negative way, and do look for people and stories that help you feel confident. So seek out people who believe in you, look for positive birth stories, and do be informed, but don't feed the fear or the anxiety. And secondly, your inner environment. So start to observe the thoughts that you're having around childbirth. So what pictures come to your mind when you think about labour? What's coming to you? How do you feel? What are the messages that you're telling yourself? And don't ignore these thoughts. We don't want to just pretend they're not there, but sit with them and start to question them. And see if you can tell where they're coming from, and see if you can start to replace them with more empowered thoughts. Thinking perhaps about how your body's perfectly designed to give birth, and about how perfect the birth process is. Learn about the birth process, and notice the shifts that you make in your outer environment. See, how are they shifting your mindset? So remember, this is a big piece of work, and it's all about undoing the years of conditioning so that you don't unconsciously trigger that conditioned pain reflex. This is all about building confidence and trust. And if you've enjoyed this video, please do join me for the next one. And I'd like to invite you to share any thoughts or questions in the comments below. And also you can join me for a free live hypnobirthing session every Thursday, and you'll find the details below. So I hope to see you there.